So I want to take a minute and talk about something that I don't think many people talk about because, well, it's somewhat embarrassing as well as confusing for many of us. So when I originally went to the doctor, before I knew I had, well, what Western society would like to label me as is on the spectrum and ADHD, I thought that my behavioral and my emotional dysregulation was because I was a bad person, first and foremost. So first I had the misconception that I was becoming a bad person. There was something very wrong with me. Thank you, system, for training me to believe that. And then when I went to the doctor and she started helping me heal my brain and gave me medication, and I started to be able to see things a bit clearer about how my behavior was causing certain reactions in my children. And then we had reached a really toxic point where I would be really good with my kids until I wasn't. And I wouldn't know I was starting to lose my mind and go insane until I was screaming and yelling like a horrible person. And I was becoming a very, very unhappy and unhealthy parent. My kids were hiding in the room a lot, not just because of me, but because of the whole environment, which I was adding to. I got really lucky, guys. My doctor is a mother, right? And she'd been my doctor since I was 16. She's also traveled and done lots of different work where she's, worked at, I forget where in Africa, but she worked basically as a doula or midwife in Africa, going around to huts and helping women give birth without any real medical aid available to them. As a doctor, trained doctor, right? She did basically like triage birth for people in major need. She probably wouldn't describe it that way, but it's what it feels like to me, right? Because we're so privileged in Western culture. So she got to see and experience a lot of different parts of life in different areas of the world, which made her a really unique individual. So when I came to her with my problems, and I was very honest and open about it and my goals, and because I've been studying neuroscience and psychology, she worked with me with my medication, and she put me in trauma therapy because I said to her, I believe that a lot of my responses now are programmed from childhood, and I would like to see how I can dive into this and help myself. But I had to ask. I had to acknowledge that I felt the need to work through my emotional dysregulation. Not every doctor is going to be as amazing as mine was, but I think that's a key part of it is you don't necessarily always get the help you want until you see that you actually need help and ask for it, right? Like that's kind of normal in almost any situation, whether you're moving a table or having a health issue. If you don't ask for help, you don't get it. And then when I started my therapy, so here's what was happening at home. We would be good until we weren't. And half the time I would be vegetation on the couch, just terrified to function. And then the other half of the time I would be stressed out trying to get stuff done, so I wouldn't be participating in family activities in the home. And then the other times I just doing all my best not to yell and scream if I wasn't yelling and screaming. And because of the trauma my youngest was going through, and I didn't know, she had become, because I was already starting to parent differently with my youngest, so I wasn't suppressing her the same way I had suppressed my other's behavior to try to make them comply to society norms. So she was a lot more fiery. And not saying my oldest and my middle child don't have fire, it's just I was a lot more encouraging of her to keep her fire, keep her voice, keep her passion. And so when she would get angry and I didn't know why, she would become violent and she would start hitting me and screaming. And I'd have to hold her or, sit with her. And that went on for years. It's only recently stopped. And it has a lot to do with how I handle her emotional dysregulation, which required me to be able to handle my own emotional dysregulation. So So if you are a mom or a dad and you're struggling to keep your shit together and you can't figure out why your kids are always triggering you and why you just can't stay calm and be patient, I really suggest holistic trauma therapy, or investigate on your own internal family systems. It was a great therapy tool for me, as well as raising my vibration, mindfulness, meditation, because the more aware I became of my emotional reactions to even the smallest of things, the more I was able to anticipate how I was going to be later on that day, which allows you to take actions to care for yourself so that you don't find yourself in that situation where you're losing control and then your kids are getting mad at you later and hitting you and yelling, right? Because I know a lot of parents get shamed out there because their kids lose their shit, but the kids lose their shit because we lose our shit, right? I would lose my shit yelling and screaming, and maybe I wasn't like swinging at them or anything because they're children, but I remember I would just have to like go in the closet and scream, or I would be yelling, and the stuff that would come out of my mouth was horrible stuff you do not want to say in front of kids. I wasn't taking it out on them, but they still shouldn't have been hearing the shit coming out of my mouth, right? Like, it creates beliefs, it creates patterns. It's something I did not want them to see. And even now with my oldest, we're kind of at an interesting situation because she's finally starting to see in herself the patterns that she's adopted from all the years of watching me. So kindness and patience is something that I require a lot of right now, so that my children have a safe place to work through things that they were taught are normal, which don't have to be. They were taught to feel a certain way, to desire certain things, right? And to fear certain things. And I know, because near the end, my ex was getting a little sloppy, and also from what my youngest told me, he did things to scare them into silence. And similar to what happened to me as a child, sometimes the trauma of what the person does to you to scare you can make you kind of forget what it was that just happened, because what they do is even scarier. So my oldest has a lot of fear, and when she was really little, I didn't understand where that came from. She was like afraid to cross the street, terrified of, like, she was so afraid, and I never understood because I didn't promote it, as I didn't think I did. And yeah, sometimes I got angry, but I didn't punish her violently or anything, but I did yell. And the yelling was just one step too far with all the rest that was going on with her. So now, you know, I'm realizing that it's about relaxing. It's about letting them relax too. So it's not about controlling them. It's not about making them, oh my God, I'm still getting it from family and friends. Have you put them in school yet? Have you done this yet? Have you done yet? I don't mean to worry, but heaven fucking forbid you leave the fucking system and you step out and do something different and let your kids be free and happy and loved and feel safe. Fucking put them right back into that shit that made them feel like everything was against them in the first place. 1 in 3 children are sexually assaulted. 1 in 3. Think about that. You meet 5 kids on the street, at least one of them's going home to be sexually assaulted by someone. Okay? You cannot put kids in a system that teaches them to be silent. My kids were going to school, suffering severe abuse, afraid to tell me, afraid to tell teachers, maybe telling friends, I don't know. The system doesn't make our kids feel safe, so why the fuck do we put them in it? Anyways, the whole point of this is, if you are struggling as a parent, take care of yourself, heal yourself. It'll make you a better parent. And even if you're absent emotionally for a little bit, it's worth it. Your kids need you. Anyways, have a great day. Okay, bye.